In December 2023, I took a 3-week-long vacation to Japan. My family owns a hotel near the small mountain town of Kaga Onsen in the west of Japan. It was a large Japanese inn, also known as ryokan, built into the side of the hill next to the Daishishi River. The area surrounding the hotel was inhabited for at least 2 millennia, and it was considered a sacred place. My father had told me a long while back that when the hotel was being constructed, the builders had found a couple of old stone blocks and pillars at the site. Apparently, there was some sort of shrine that had been built there around the 9th century. The last time I stayed in that hotel was over 15 years ago, so I was kind of interested in reliving the experience of staying there. As well as that, I really like exploring, and remembering the story that my father told me, I decided to go and do some off-trail hiking in the forest below the hotel, hopefully finding any traces of the ancient ruins which my father mentioned. As soon as I arrived at the nearby city of Kanazawa, I got a car at the rental next to the train station and drove up to the hotel. It was snowing heavily and traffic was terrible. The ride was supposed to take around an hour, but instead it took 2 hours. I arrived at the hotel around 8, and I let myself in. The hotel was basically vacant in December, and tourists don't usually go to this part of Japan in the winter. There was no staff at all in the hotel. I found myself being the only person in the hotel. The feeling was quite surreal, just being alone in such a building in the middle of nowhere. I grabbed one of the keys behind the counter, let myself into one of the suites, and slept there for the night. The next day, I went into the forest below the hotel. The snow was quite deep, up to my ankles, and trudging down rough terrain with boots was absolute hell. I must have walked far enough into the forest to lose my sense of direction. I checked my phone, but there was no signal at all. I had been walking for around an hour and didn't know where I was. I was surrounded by trees on all sides, and directly in front of me was a large hill. I thought it would be good if I climbed to the summit so I could get a better vantage point to possibly locate any form of civilization. The ascent was very tough, the sides of the hill being quite steep and rocky. However, off to the left, I noticed what looked like the remnants of a path. I slowly traversed my way towards the path. It was a dirt path that wound its way up towards the summit of the hill. The path was slightly overgrown with dead branches blocking the way up, but soon enough I managed to reach my way to the top. However, I noticed that soon enough the path was gone. It just ended. I looked around the hill and noticed a small cavity in the hillside above the path, hidden in the vegetation, maybe 5 meters away from the path. I climbed up and found myself standing in front of the entrance to a small cave. A bit of mud had washed into the cave, but the opening was large enough for me to fit my body through. I had a small flashlight on me, and I shone it into the opening. I could see a small alcove in front of me, with another small opening to the left. As I entered the cave, a certain smell hit me. I don't know how to explain it, but the best way to describe it is that it smelt like an animal at the zoo. The alcove in front of me was bare except for a large rectangular block of stone placed right in the middle. As I walked deeper into the cave, I found myself in a large stone chamber. There were 2 other side tunnels that ran from this chamber, but I didn't explore them. There was yet another rectangular stone block, but this time it was on the far side of the chamber and looked to be hollow. I got up close to the block, and to my utter shock, there looked to be human bones inside the block. Surrounding the bones was a long piece of steel and a bunch of old bronze coins, the ones with the square hole in the center. I just stood there in a mix of utter shock and disbelief. I reached down and picked up one of the coins. I don't know why I did it, just instinct, I guess. The coin was old and corroded, but some characteristics were visible on it. Before I could examine it closely, I heard a loud crash come from deep within one of the side tunnels. I quickly pointed my flashlight towards the origin of the sound. The animalistic scent got stronger, making the air feel toxic. I, for some reason, grabbed the long piece of steel resting amongst the bones and held it in front of me with one hand as a weapon. The light of my flashlight made it easier for me to see that the long piece of steel looked to be the remnants of a long blade. I started backing away towards the entrance. The smell was different this time. I could smell smoke under that overwhelming stench. I could hear a rhythmic thumping originating from deep within the tunnel. It sounded like someone banging on a drum. That's the point where I lost it. I ran out of the cave, back out towards the opening. As I ran out, I swear that I felt the entire cave vibrate and shake. I jumped out of the entrance onto the slope below and tumbled onto the snowy ground. I had dropped the blade on the snowy ground, but I didn't care to pick it up. I kept on running and running down the slope, crashing through dead twigs and branches. I ran and ran until I heard the sound of a car driving past in the distance. I soon found myself on the side of the road. I let out a sigh of relief as I collapsed by the side of the road. I managed to flag down a passing car. The driver was first reluctant to let me in, but after seeing how distressed I was, he did. Through some conversation with the driver, I found out that I was quite far from the hotel, around 4 miles. Soon enough, I arrived back at the hotel. I went back to my room, packed up everything, and got in my car. I didn't feel safe being the only person in the hotel. I drove back to Kanazawa, where I stayed for the night. This story has a follow-up, though. When the hotel was up and running in February, I got a text from my father. He told me that someone had broken into the hotel through one of the first-floor windows. Surprisingly, nothing was damaged or stolen, except for the front door of my room, which was smashed wide open with some sort of blunt metal objects. I don't know if this is connected to my experience, but I am definitely not going to be staying at that hotel ever.